Hello,
Greetings.
how are you?
Good afternoon, Council. Hope you have a good meeting today or several meetings. We'll get through it one at a time. We'll talk to you soon.
Here we are. Thank you. Sorry, guys, having technical problems on my end here, and the computer wasn't coming up for me. Welcome. Nice to see you all again.
You're still logged in on your cell phone.
Oh, I'm still. Oh, look at me there. Yes, I see you there too. Okay, well, I can get out of there, I think. I'll just do that. I should do that. Okay, it's 3:04 or 3:05 now, and it's October 20th. This is the Committee of the Whole. I acknowledge that we're meeting today on the lands, traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. And welcome everybody. And we have a very full agenda. And, at the beginning of the agenda, I just want to comment how much I appreciate the complexity of the organization that we all belong to, the number of projects and the overall value. I mean, we're running a $12 million organization here, corporation, and the complexity of the projects that goes on and the dedication of the staff that it takes to do them with a very small staff when it comes right down to it. So I thank everybody for that. And we'll launch right into the agenda now. And we have several reports. So first of all, I'd like a motion to approve the agenda. First of all, Councillor Kroll, Councillor Ladwig, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And a motion to receive all of the reports. So Councillor Diendrad, Councillor Lumley, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. So that takes care of that part of the business so we don't have to forget about later on. So the first item on our agenda is the Detachment Commander, Staff Sergeant Poppy Hallam, the RCMP, presentation of the quarterly report. I see her there. Poppy, welcome.
Good morning, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess it's afternoon. I don't know what I'm saying.
I don't know where you are.
No, sorry. I couldn't get signed in. So I'm a little flustered. My apologies. I don't like to join a meeting sort of feeling flustered.
Hey, listen, I had the same problem. It took me 5 minutes to sign in today for some reason. Yeah. Am I a little dark on the screen for everybody? Or I don't know if I can change that.
I can see your hair and your mustache.
Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad. It's probably my best features. Yeah, well, thank you. And I'm just going to launch right in. We have several reports, a long meeting today. So, Poppy, if you just go ahead and present the quarter report for the RCMP. Thank you. You've gone sideways. Yes.
Yes, I went sideways. Cool. Just that's the only I have to use. So the RCMP doesn't approve of Zoom. It's not a secure platform. Yeah. So therefore I have to use a personal device to do this, and I'm using my phone. So
we'll all turn our heads kind of this way. We'll be able to see you. There
do you want me? Is there a way I can do it upright? Is that better?
Well, it's fine. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna hold it then if that works better.
Yeah. I'm gonna drop the blinds behind me. That might help. Go ahead, Poppy.
Okay, so attached, you would have received our quarterly report. So it's the quarterly reports, which includes all of the Sunshine Coast, and then broken down, showing some stuff for Gibsons as well. What I asked was for my support staff, Matthew Forster, to dig into Gibsons a little more, because when the stats went out, I noticed that we didn't actually have total file counts on there. And I also just wanted him to dig into Gibsons specifically for this meeting so that we could talk about more specifics around what's affecting your community. So in general terms, and that's on the addendum that was added. I'm not sure if Lindsay added it to your stuff or you have it there with you. But I think it's kind of important. So the total files, there you go. Yeah, perfect. So total files, what I had Matthew do is show us what 2019, July to September 2019 looked like, and July to September 2020, just to kind of see where we're at. And we're sort of maintaining status quo. August was a busy month. September's starting to wean off again. But overall, the trends are staying relatively the same with mental health related files. We're seeing some increases again.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that on the entire Sunshine Coast. We don't normally, as I've said before, report those statistics because they're not reportable to Stats Canada. However, they really do affect our response and what we have to deal with. And Gibsons in particular had a situation with a suicidal male that our members responded to, and spent hours de-escalating and working with this fellow. And he just decided that he would charge at our police officers with a knife, and the CEW, the conducted energy weapon, was deployed safely and as per policy, and he was taken into custody without injury and no injury to our officers. But that's the reality. It was not a criminal offense that we were called to for that situation. It was a mental health call, and I believe that those are some of the most serious and dynamic calls for service for our police officers. And I know that you as a council are behind us with that as well. So
because that escalated, would that have become a criminal offense, or was it still treated as mental health even though he charged with a knife?
It's remained a mental health call. So we did not charge him with assault police officer because part of the assault, the charge of assault is mens rea. What is your intent behind it? And his intent that day was to self-harm, and he was hoping our police officers would engage and help him with that self-harm. And that, of course, is not what we want. That's not the outcome that we want. And so the CEW was the appropriate intervention option. And that sort of, brings our conversations around with the mental health part. And, how we and Vancouver Coastal Health, Mental Health and Addictions have been working very closely and on initiatives and how we can best work in the community and respond in a joint fashion. They do have their ICM team, and they are prepared to go out to calls with us. So we have our youth officer, a new position, our youth liaison officer, Constable Nicole Hall. She's going to be doing a little bit of mental health work part-time, and is going to be assisting this ICM mental health car to go to some of these calls for service. And we're going to test that out again. It was done years ago, and we're going to put that back into place. I think it's really important with the increase to the mental health calls. Statistic wise, I was looking at your number of break and enters, a little bit higher than our 3-year average. One of the ones that stood out was the Gibsons Landing trading post. That's still under investigation. We have not solved that. The other ones that I looked at, because I was wondering what the numbers were, and storage locker with a bicycle taken, a break and enter to an empty garage, nothing was taken. A couple of the break and enter complaints were actually landlord tenancy issues with landlords possibly overstepping their authority to enter some of these premises to either evict or collect rent or whatnot. So they weren't true in the same sense like the Gibsons Landing trading post break and enter. So what the stats weren't as high as what what they look like. So they weren't as bad when I was digging in, because it looks like a 300% and 200% increase, but really they were unsubstantiated or very minor in nature. So that was reassuring. What else? We just, I think it's important, like when you're looking at things like traffic investigations and impaired driving investigations, with COVID-19, a lot of restrictions were placed on RCMP for how we did protocol with our training. And a lot of training was actually canceled outright until they could put in place physical distancing and cleaning protocols, et cetera. So we went through a fairly dry spell with our training, and just resumed the end of August. We had, or the middle beginning of September, we had our annual firearms qualifications. We had our carbine firearm recertifications and rifle recertifications. And then just last week, we had our ASDs. So those are the approved screening device, the roadside screening devices for impaired driving investigations. We had a fellow come to our detachment and spend 2 days and put a bunch of our members through that training so that they have that. Our conducted energy weapon recertifications and some new user training is going to be occurring on the 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st of this month. We had one fellow go off to the boat training. So he's got his advanced water training through Intofino. We have a few people that went on some phased interviewing and other training, and soon we will have the radar. We have a fellow coming out to do radar training for our members. So pretty excited about getting training back and going, and the trainers have been quite happy to come to the Sunshine Coast to do the training. It saves us a lot of money for having and time and effort on our members to go off coast to get the training. It's better if we can bring them and do this in-house. So it's working very well. Yeah, so I would expect with the impaired driving, we should, you may see, I noticed we did have 2 impaired driving investigations, one yesterday and the day before, where people received 90-day roadside prohibitions for driving while impaired. And I'm confident now that people have more tools to do these investigations. You may see those numbers spike a bit more. And then the only other thing that really doesn't have a lot to do with statistics, but I've got a couple of things that I thought council would be interested in. But if you wanted to ask me some questions around the stats first, and then I can talk about the other things that I'm working on.
Council, do you have any questions on the stats, David? Councillor Kroll?
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. Sergeant Hallam, I think something you suggested, and it came up at board last week with your report, is when you have to deal with mental health issues, the fact that they're not reportable stats to Statistics Canada, which A, affects your funding, and B, affects your ability to request resources. You're using huge amounts of resources to deal with these calls, yet you can't claim them. And I'm just wondering, it came up at board and it probably should be addressed here, as a community and a municipality, how we can sort of advocate on your behalf to sort of get a little better playing field for you.
Well, this kind of leads into, my computer's right here, and just leads into what I've been working on. So I'm working on a business case, requesting more provincial resources. So I'm doing an ask for this year. So it'll be 2021, 2022 for 2 regular member constables for our provincial. So some of the requests, like, so the request for resources, they call it a business case, but the request for resources asks several questions of the author, myself, talking about how does the request for more resources, what's the relationship between the contractual legislative requirements for policing services? How would the increase to establishment reduce caseloads, improve, like have cost saving improvements to client community ratings? Like, I'm just looking at the computer here, and it's quite the document, and I'm just about finished. I've been working on it for the last couple days just to make sure that it has what's important for the communities, and I'm speaking to what is important to you, because you guys are part of the provincially funded area of responsibility. I want to make sure that I'm speaking to that. And some of the things that it allows you to speak to the mental health calls. It allows you to speak to how resourcing allocations and time to get to calls, and what happens if are you delivering on the other priorities for your communities. If you're off doing one thing in
Lost you, Poppy.
another area, community feeling they're being ignored or they're not getting the service about the criminals, it's allows me to speak to other things that are going on, which is the mental health, which is the fact that we have to use police marine vessels to get to calls. We have to use a water taxi to get to calls. Some of the things that are unique to rural policing, and the fact that we do not have access to overtime resources at a minute's notice to come and back up our members. So we have to be quite self-sufficient and resourceful when we're seeking assistance. And so I think I was able to, I'm pretty confident the way I was able to present what the issues are for us on the Sunshine Coast and what the issues are for the communities. The fact that, you know, our general investigation section spent hours and hours and hours conducting multiple search warrants into several different locations and seizing hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stolen property. 28 firearms in 6 weeks were seized through investigations, as well as a lot of illicit drugs, and we're going to be laying some drug trafficking charges. It's all good work, and it's all work that needs to be done, but it requires the ability to focus and to have that time to do the disclosure and all the investigation that needs to be done to stand up in the court, stand the test of court procedure and proceedings. And so what happens is our members end up coming in on overtime, and we're drawing on resources on overtime to do these complex investigations. Yes, we're getting them done, but what does that cost? And so I think I'm able to explain without actually really going into because we don't have a high crime number, like our crime stats aren't high, so to speak. But what we're doing is good work and time consuming, and it's important. So I think I'm good to explain that. It's not all on crime stats for requesting more resources.
Right, good. Do you look at also the fact that, and we've discussed this, in terms of, can you guys see me? My screen's gone away.
I can see you.
Okay, good. I don't see anybody. In terms of if you're working in a Lower Mainland detachment and your members were tied up on a case for a significant period of time, you can notify the next detachment over to give you some coverage if need be. We don't have that ability here to do that. Does that factor into anything?
Well, it absolutely does. And that's where I can speak to the fact that, you know, we do have very dedicated officers who, when I call them, they come in. I mean, our people come in knowing that that their coworker will do it for them. And so it's that sort of reciprocity, like and wanting to do the right thing and do a good job for their community and for the detachment. So, but it's a unique situation. And I think that, our numbers, we haven't had an increase to establishment since 2007 by the province. That's 13, almost 14 years ago. And the District of Sechelt gave us one in 2009. So our POP to COP ratio is a little bit higher than the provincial average. It's not overly higher, but it's higher. And I think what's going to happen, what we're going to see with the 2021 census, and when we get the results in, I feel that we're gonna really need to ask for more. And so I'm doing this ask now based on what we're working with, and I see this being another big ask in 2022.
Other questions, councillors? One thing that I've discussed with Poppy is the kind of doing a kind of a pre and a post statistical analysis going forward of around the supportive housing. There's a lot of kind of belief areas where supportive housing is being put in place that crime explodes. Unless we have kind of thought about it in advance and taken a look at, say, 3 years before and then ongoing, trying to collect that kind of information that we can look at and say, okay, every quarter or every 6 months, we can say there has been a change or there's not been a change. And that might even break down into a area of the community as opposed to the community as a whole. So that type of information statistically is important for us to be prepared for as we start in 2021 with the supportive housing. Just to either support arguments or to counter arguments. We need to be able to say that yes, we recognize there's been a change and this is how we're responding to that change, or from the information that we have received and is available, we don't see the change that people are imagining. And that's the type of thing we need to be able to look at. And that's important information. So.
Well, and that forms part of my request for more provincial bodies as well, is because, as these supportive housing complexes go up and we have more supports for our vulnerable, there is an expectation that we provide safety around those areas. And, we have to make sure that we have enough people down in Gibsons and around for you guys. And that forms part of because I'm looking at all the housing strategies. When I looked at, and I mean, someone may be able to correct me, but I went online and did some research and I looked at our housing on the Sunshine Coast and how the increase, the average median house price, the increase is astronomical. And you can see the writing is on the wall where we force people into situations, into homelessness. And I think the Sunshine Coast is doing the best they can to create more housing and build more complexes. And but it's going to be interesting to see what our census has. And, I think that for us as a police force, policing's become more and more complex. And we have some policies in place: domestic violence, mental health, and check well-being files require a 2-person response. Yeah. And so we have, I want to make sure that, we have 1 police officer all the time in Gibsons on duty, and usually a 2nd or a 3rd. And we need to have more.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, we do. And so I've been spending a lot of time on this. It's really important to me to get these resources where they need to be. I recognize, that we can't be everything to everybody. So we have to be able to be smart. Just so we've streamlined some processes, our senior management team in the detachment, to sort of streamline the police officers, to give them some focus, because it can be daunting when you think about being responsible for policing this whole entire coast, 30,000 plus people, the waterways and all the things, right? And sometimes at night I think, I'm at home with my family and my husband's at work and I'm responsible for my family. And then I sort of laugh and say, wait a second, I'm responsible for the public safety of the entire Sunshine Coast. And so sometimes to reduce that angst, or, if people feel sort of overwhelmed, it's important to give them focus. So what we did as a senior management team was provide bi-weekly, which can be updated before that, but we've been giving them a bi-weekly report, a strategy for the police officers to focus on. So we give them hotspots, and those are identified through our government partners and for calls for service. Places that we need to focus, and we want them to do proactive patrols and visibility. And also our prolific and priority offenders, people who are coming to the attention of law enforcement, and we need to be spending time on them, curfew checking or checking conditions. Maybe they're on no goes and no contacts, making sure they're following. And we let them know what our most recent sort of crime statistics, like what our file counts are and what the kind of files are that we've been going to, so that they have an idea of what, yeah, you actually have gone to a lot more mental health calls, or, oh, yes, you have gone to a lot more of this or that. And then the persons of interest who might be a danger to police or to other people that they need to be concerned about. And we've had really good feedback so far. The members are feeling like it's very strategic and focused, and gives them something to say, okay, tonight we need to be behind Elphinstone High School. We need to be at Roberts Creek Beach Pier. We need to be on Lamprey Lane. Like, we have these, and they know the places that that need to be like where they should be focusing. And so I think that's been a very positive move for us.
Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. Sergeant Hallam, you mentioned wanting to expand your detachment, human resources, but you also made referenced housing. How are you finding being able to recruit members to the coast with the housing prices here?
Well, I can only speak on one that we had a reserve. It was he's a staff sergeant, and he was looking to retire on the Sunshine Coast and then become a reservist, where he would be back as a constable, and I'd be able to utilize him for patrols and things on a part-time basis. And he decided that it was cost prohibitive, and they found another place that was a little bit less expensive for them. So that was too bad, because I was looking forward to having him as a reservist. But I've had some good luck recently, actually, in recruiting. And I've got a fellow coming from Lytton, and I have a male and female partners coming from Fort St. James. And I'm waiting to hear about somebody coming from Surrey. So we'll see. Surrey is holding on to people just because of the transition. They're not really sure, but this member's really wanted to come. She's wanted to come to the Sunshine Coast for 3 years now. So we're really hoping that she gets released. But I'm very excited. I have some experienced, really well-rounded, good police officers coming. So yeah, I feel good about it. But a lot of it has been recruiting that we and myself have been doing to get people here. So, but I feel good about it.
Thank you.
And while I have you, Councillor Kroll, I wanted you to know that I spoke to the officer in charge of Richmond Detachment, who does their app, their mobile crime reporting app. And I just wanted to bring it up here because it's really neat. It's we had a good look at it. We downloaded it on our phones to see what it was like. And so I reached out to the OIC, and he wanted me to, he let me know that it's really good, but it was designed by one of his employees, one of his support staff employees. I have the PowerPoint that he provided me. It was specifically designed because the RCMP hasn't approved an online, an app like that yet. So some of the other police forces, New West, Transit Police, I'm just looking on my computer right now, Victoria PD, have been using other mobile, there's mobile apps designed for police forces. And the thing with them is they're quite expensive. So it was, I'm just looking at the prices here. So the initial setup for Richmond to set up their thing was $20,000 Canadian to pay the person to design it and set it up. If they were to use the My PD app, the mobile app, Crime Report, or the police app, they're all over the map. The police app is $16,000 US. Mobile PD $7,500 US, and Crime Report. So they're pretty expensive. So, and then there's ongoing cost to maintain it, because you got to pay somebody, because it's got to be updated, maintained all the time. And what they're looking at is about $21,000 a year to maintain it. So it's not something I have in my budget right now, but I think that the BCRCMP is probably going to be adopting this because it's just technology that we have to do. Like, we're going to have to do it. And I believe they'll probably create a platform that'll work for us smaller detachments that we'll be able to purchase into. But for us on the Sunshine Coast with my budget, I couldn't afford to pay somebody to create that right now.
I appreciate that, Sergeant Hallam. Just so council knows, there is an app. It's a RCMP app that the city of Richmond use, and within it is a report of crime feature. So if you're out and whether it's a scene of an accident, you can just tap on the thing. It uses your GPS to say where you are. So it's a great app, and the report of crime, I think, came up in an earlier report, but it was incorporated into this app. So I just asked Sergeant Hallam if it was something that, you know, they could perhaps share with Richmond, but it sounds like it's a little more complicated. But and it's great because it gives you alerts and all sorts of things. So anyway,
We love it. It's fantastic. And so Surrey's working on one as well. And I really feel that it's going to, because they're municipally funded detachments, they have a little bit more money in their budgets to do some things that is a little bit tougher for me with a blended budget, like with a, you know, blended funding model. It's a little tougher for me to spend that money, but I think it's fantastic and I'm all for it. And I want to get him on board as soon as we possibly can afford it.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for Poppy before we let her go for now? We will be in touch. We have a good deal of things to talk about and work together on coming up in this fall session. So, thank you very much for what you guys are doing out there, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next few weeks.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much.
Everyone take care, be safe, healthy out there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Bye.
I don't know if the other Mayor Beamish is on the screen here wants to say anything, but well, he's there somewhere. Yeah. Rob, Michael, thank you and welcome. You are our next presenter. And in the interest of time, Rob, we'll just let you carry right into it. Thank you.
Sure. I recognize you've got a full agenda here, so I'll try to trim my 60-minute presentation down to about 55 minutes or less.
Thank you.
So Mayor and Council, the fire department membership currently consists of 40 active members. The focus on training for this quarter was completion of the exterior program for some of our recruits, hazardous materials, rope rescue, and live fire training. In an effort to maintain physical distancing and business continuity, the department has broken up into response teams. It's allowed the fire department to remain operational while limiting the risk to first responders. However, the administrative workload for the training officer has increased with the requirement to double the number of practice sessions to avoid large groups training together. Travis Young has joined the department as a casual fire inspector. He initially started as a volunteer in 2014, and since that time, he's completed numerous firefighting and fire officer courses. He was also selected by his peers as Firefighter of the Year in 2015. Very welcome to have Travis on the team and looking forward to strengthening our prevention program with his involvement. The fire department responded to 71 calls for service in the third quarter. Notable incidents this quarter included several small structure fires that were quickly extinguished, brush fire on Sunnycrest Road, and a compromised hydro box with an oil leak that resulted in the partial evacuation of Garrow Point Road. One additional call out saw several agencies working together for a medical incident. The Canadian Coast Guard was on a training exercise and assisted with a medical distress where BC Ambulance, RCMP, and the fire department were all called to assist. The outstanding cooperation by all agencies involved was very impressive. Fire department projects are moving forward smoothly and several are nearing completion. The fire department hopes to have all outstanding projects finished by the end of this year. The initial attack vehicle replacement, however, is anticipated to take longer due to the scope of the project. An award report is scheduled to go to the SCRD board on November 12th, not October 22nd as originally reported here. And I am happy to answer any questions from Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate your whittling all this down to the important features. So thank you. Council, questions? Councillor Kroll.
It was something in your report that I just wanted to flag, and it speaks of the quality of training of the Gibsons detachment is Sebastian Sleep joining the Vancouver Fire Department. So, kudos to the Gibsons detachment for the years of training that he participated in here, and wishing him success with the Vancouver Fire Department.
Thank you for that. I can't take much credit because it was a lot of determination on his part as well. I mean, he gave so much selflessly to this department. It was really tough giving that reference letter because I really don't want to see him go, but very happy to see him achieve a personal goal of his, and a well-deserved and well-earned. I couldn't think of a better person for them to hire. So
I think the Sleep family traditionally have been very heavily involved in the Gibsons detachment, and it's kudos to them and to the
Absolutely.
detachment.
Other questions, councillors? Chief, I have a question on your page 6 of your report. You talk about burning complaints and 4 calls for burning complaints and or illegal burning. Were any of those illegal burns in Gibsons?
I'd have to go back and look. I really actually don't have that many burning complaints within the town boundaries.
Right.
So in the town, as everybody is aware, there is no open burning. I think that's pretty well established by this point. So we're really not attending that many within the municipal boundaries.
Okay. And in terms of your plans for next year, you've listed off the major budget items for this current year. What kind of things do you have coming up for 2021?
What I would probably like to do is probably save that for the Fire Commission, who are meeting on Friday.
Oh, okay.
Fair
game.
Yeah, I think that would be the best course of action. The agenda has gone out to them, and we'll have a wholesome discussion there.
Good. Okay. Okay. Council is Councilor D'Andrade. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's just a clarification. I don't know if I'm not sure if I understood when you talk about false alarms being a nuisance, but then I understand the calls, but then you said 9 were deemed to be false, but they functioned properly. So I'm confused. What's the reason?
So I'll have to look at exactly how I wrote there, but I think I tried to differentiate the two. A false alarm to me is there's absolutely no reason for that alarm to be activated, and the fire department shouldn't have been attended, and it's generally maintenance issues. However, in other cases where the alarms were activated, and I believe I might have kept a section from a previous report here, but when smoke sets off an alarm or heat sets off an alarm or something that is supposed to trigger an alarm activation, then those instances likely prevented larger events from happening.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. I see no further questions. So Chief Michael, I thank you very much for your report again and for your time spent with us. And thank you very much for another successful quarter. It's interesting. I don't know how many of you guys follow corporate quarterly reports, but corporations file quarterly reports. The stock market always moves depending upon the quality of that report. And our stocks are going up. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and enjoy the rest of your meeting. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
There might be a conflict with the police.
That's right.
We want to recruit, and so maybe we have to trade off.
Okay. Okay, we're moving now to our next report, and this is the Director of Finance, 2020 Grants of Assistance Round 2.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. So this is the round 2. We have council has left just over $4,800 remaining funding available for this round. The policy has a 10% cap per applicant, which translates to $2,000 each. So we received one application by the September 15th deadline, as noted in the report, and that was from the Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance Society, and they're requesting $2,000 for their project. The Gibsons Senior Society submitted a letter late Friday requesting support for a flooring project that they have. There was no specific funding amount requested, but the project cost is approximately $6,000. Due to the lateness of that submission, it wasn't included in today's agenda or the report. So I'm looking for direction on how the committee wants to proceed with that. And I understand that there are some representatives from each organization that are attending the meeting that may be able to answer any questions that the committee has. And I'm here to answer questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kroll, I see your hand up.
No, my understanding with the seniors that it's flooring for their kitchen, and it's sort of necessary to have the flooring upgraded to maintain their sort of safe kitchen status so they're able to prepare community meals and things like that. So, I would certainly make a motion, even though that their request is late, to support it, because they fulfill a great role in the community in providing, affordable meals to seniors. And it would be regrettable for them to lose their commercial kitchen status.
Question I have, Councillor Kroll, for you on that resolution is to what level are you recommending to support it? Because they've asked for considerably more than we actually have, especially if you do also support the one that did come in time.
Mayor Beamish, with the funds we have available and the 10% cap within the funds we have available, we could support the seniors to the amount of $2,000 and stay within our guidelines.
Is that your
I would certainly be prepared to go more with them. Even the balance between the $2,000 for the Bear Alliance and what's left in that, if council were in agreement.
Councillor D'Andrade, I'll go to you. I saw your hand first.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I appreciate that Councillor Kroll spoke first. I was going to make the same request, a similar request. And I fully understand that the cap of 10%, but we are in an emergential situation, and the senior societies have provided a good service. Another reminder is we are probably one of the highest population of seniors in Canada. We know that our numbers are pretty high, so there's a demand. We have issues with decrease income due to the COVID. So I think I would like to perhaps pitch that we go above the $2,000 and with the remaining of the funding, which is approximately $2,800.
So it's been moved and seconded. Discussion, Councillor Lumley.
Just on a side point, I know the Senior Society, which obviously everyone fully supports, has come forward a few times with a few different financial requests. I'm just wondering if we should take a longer look at how we're going to financially support the seniors, rather than just ad hocly, giving money, hey, we need money now. Hey, we need money now. It just seems like we should have a plan in place to assist them, so that, all this emergency financing seems, I don't know. We just need a plan to be in place. I think any time you're going to give money to, because the town could be in a position to help them recover all the costs for the floor. Nobody knows, but to have a plan of support, annually would be my suggestion, and especially when you're giving money to an organization for infrastructure, I think the town, like I said, if they're going to give even more money or find a ways to recover the cost completely for them, then, you know, some of these plans like major repairs should be reviewed by the town at least, because if we're going to be investing in infrastructure upgrades at the facility, I think that we should at least have some comfort level that when we give the money, you know, it's appropriately allocated for the right reasons. That's all. That's my thoughts.
I think there's perhaps a broader picture we need to have with the seniors, a discussion, because I do understand that they are in the process right now of planning for a new facility at that location or another location. And so that it does come to a point in time as whether it's maintenance or enhancements to something that may not exist 5 years from now or 3 years from now. But I appreciate what you're saying. I do believe that we did add the seniors as a line item for 2021 budget. Is that correct, Director of Finance?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just looking at that, and I know that at the last year's grant of assistance, council made a motion to add restorative justice under policing costs, and then a line for childcare programs and other. And I haven't seen the line for seniors at this point, but it's vaguely ringing a bell. But I would suggest that that would be something that if council wants to bring forward that as line item, that can be a motion either now or as part of the 2021 budget discussion.
We have a motion on the floor already, so we won't entertain that motion right now. But Corporate Officer?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify the wording of the motion that's currently on the table. I wasn't sure if it was moved at 2,000 or 2,800.
I am under the understanding it's $2,843. It's a balance, assuming we give the funding to the Barrow line. In fact, I think, yeah, it is one motion, but I think if possible, it could be one motion. But an appropriate motion would be that we provide grants of assistance to the seniors in the value of $4,843 and to the Barrow Line Society the value of $2,000, and that would take that fund away. But we could do it as two motions. So right now, I understand you're there with $4,843. Councilor Cole.
Sorry,
or
that's the total funding available is the $48,043.
Yeah, so $2,843. Councilor Crowell, is that your motion?
If subject to the Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance being approved at 2,000, then my motion would be that the balance of $2,843 be made available to the Senior Society.
And Councilor D'Andrade, was that your understanding as well? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Further discussion of that? So I'll call the question. Councilor Crowell, I see your hand up.
You can call the question and then I'll make the suggestion I was going to make. It sort of follows along with what Councillor Lumley was suggesting.
Okay, call the question on that item. All in favor? Okay, no opposed. Thank you. Could we deal with the Bear Alliance recommendation first, Councillor Crowell? Is it Councillor D'Andrade? Do you have a recommendation there?
Yes. Also, sorry, I thought the motion was at the regular committee, but I don't understand.
Do you want to make the motion for $2,000 for the Bear Alliance?
Okay, I'll make the motion. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Does someone second that? Councillor Crowell. Any discussion on that item, councillors? Okay, all in favor of that, $2,000 to Bear Alliance? Okay. Now, Councillor Crowell, you had another motion?
I was just going to say, in light of the fact that we have approved this funding for the seniors, if we have the capacity through the building department, it might be worth them having a look at the floor. They may have a recommendation that would upgrade the floor to meet the criteria for the commercial kitchen status without it costing them $5,000 or whatever their quote was. They may have just got a panic quote to meet the requirements of the funding, but, perhaps our staff could assist them in some way that it might be more affordable.
Can I suggest that is probably not a role of our staff? In that building is not ours.
Oh, that's right. It's our land, their building.
That's right. To go in there and give advice. They have had a look at, they have had quotes, and I think that they know what they want to do, so that we're helping them. We don't have the whole money, that's all. Councillor Diandrat?
Yes, can I make the resolution that Gibson Senior Society becomes a line item on our budget? And following Councillor Lumley point of view, I think it's great. During the budget, we can have a discussion.
Yep. Okay. I hear you. Do I have a seconder to that? Councillor Ledwig second that. Further discussion on that item? We don't have to fill in the number right now. We're just saying that next year when it comes up, we'll talk about it. Okay, all in favor of adding that? Okay, thank you. That passes well. Thank you. So that hereby ends our grants of assistance for 2020. It's always a challenge, grants of assistance, and you'd think it wouldn't be so challenging to give money away, but it's always a challenge. And thanks, staff, for your work on that. Was there anything else, Director of Finance, on that item?
No, there isn't. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. And the table we have on page 23 of our agenda, council should just be aware of that and for coming up for next year. Okay, and Bear Alliance, I'm sure will be pleased with that additional income. We'll go forward now to the next item on our agenda, which is the starting to get into those challenging things. And this is a 9-month review. And again, this first one is the 2020 operations budget. And I'll refer again to the Director of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report provides a review of the operational budgets to date with a projection to year end. The projections provided with the proviso that there are many variables to consider and actual results are going to vary, but I tried to project out to see where we're going to land at year end. It also assumes that there's no additional taxation funding required if we have any for any unexpected cost overruns in capital. So that would dip into the numbers that I'm showing today if that did occur. Overall, the projections look really quite positive considering the year we've had. So for general operations, I'm projecting a surplus of approximately $80,000. Note though that some of the revenue that is being recorded in there or considered in there is development driven. So the timing, if it doesn't match our year end, that will have a negative effect on results. In general, overall, the increased COVID related costs have been offset by reductions in changes to operations as a result of COVID. So those would be things like reduced travel and meeting expenses and some staff vacancies as well. So it balanced out a bit there, which was helpful. From the water operations point of view, I'm projecting a deficit of just over $21,000. And I was watching the water consumption. I was wondering about how the revenue would be affected because of the change in use of commercial shutting down periodically and people working from home. And we saw that in the usage. So we're seeing a reduction in commercial water user revenue, but it's offset by the increase in residential as people were working from home. So fortunately, things balanced out quite nicely there. We did have some additional repair and maintenance in the water system this year. And if we do end up with a deficit, it would be funded from a reduced transfer to reserves. And the council, remember, I'm trying to build up our reserves in water. So I would just be reducing that slightly to cover any deficit. So we're in good shape there as well. From the sewer operations, the projection's very close to budget. And although there were some increased costs related to the treatment plant, there's a lot of work going on there right now, which is great work. It was offset by some lower costs for fiscal services. We're seeing lower debt, interest rates for debt, and it's really helping us out in that perspective. So overall, I'm really pleased with how the budgets are looking. And I do want to say a big thanks to the management team for their efforts, because they've been making adjustments through the year, and it's been a really challenging year, and they've been doing a really great job. So makes my job a bit easier. So thank you very much to them. And I'm happy to answer any questions if council has any at this time.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions? And just a comment going into next year, for example, Sea Cavalcade funding, we saved that $15,000. It probably is something we should be moving forward into next year. Just means we don't have a tax for it. It's there, it's done, it's unexpended. We can, it's one less thing to tax for next year if we know that we had that surplus in that item. So those are things that we need to think about that going forward. So.
On that note, Mayor, I've got a question. Would council also like to see, and that was one of the reasons I put that in there, was to get some direction to see if you wanted me to carry that forward, and I can do that. The other one is the music and the landing. There was about 14 grand there too. So.
Yeah, I'm surprised. In short, the Chamber of Commerce hasn't picked up in the 5,000. And CAO, do you have any, or Councillor Lumley, any thoughts on that? Councillor Lumley, the liaison to them.
Well, sorry, Manny. Okay, go ahead, Manny. I'll wait.
No, it's okay. There was a call last week. They are working with Innovation Island. They have a program to help local businesses get online, those that don't have updated websites, and help them set up their inventories and so on. So there's a program, and they're counting on the 5,000, which they know about it. And I'm hoping that by the end of this year, at the end of the next quarter, they'll be here reporting on that program. But they're doing their part, I would say. Yeah.
I don't think we had tied that to any specific item for them, so that at some point in time, if they just invoice us at 5,000.
I believe the motion did reference that they needed council approval for that. So,
okay. Sorry, I apologize. Yeah. Okay. Councilor, you were going to say?
I was going to say, is there any way to change music in the landing to swimming at the pool and allocate those funds? It's just a suggestion, but I was reading where those funds might even cover the extra costs of opening the pool. So anyway, just a suggestion.
Well, I think we're going to have that conversation later, but it certainly is something to bear in mind that there's potentially funds there because, but there's also that, yeah, I would rather save my comments till a later conversation. We do have a capital
no problem
opportunity there, but yeah.
Sometimes I have to speak so I don't, because I'll forget by tonight's meeting.
We will remind you. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so. But that being said, I mean, do you want to, does council want to carry over the Sea Cavalcade $15,000 at this time, recognizing just goes on the next year's budget? It was unexpended this year, and we just add that to next year. I need a motion. Councilor Crowley, you have a question?
Just to clarify, we would carry the money over. Right, so we wouldn't be taxing next year for the 15,000
exactly.
for Cavalcade.
Right.
It's not carrying it over to give them 30,000 for next year.
No, it's carrying over the $15,000 goes on the budget. Yeah.
So I would make the motion that we carry it forward.
Councilor Diendrad, can you second that? Any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. And let's look forward to it. It could well happen, and we do need a celebration in our lives. Mm-hmm. And thank you, Director of Finance, for that report. See no further questions at council. We'll move on to the Finance Department. Another report, another quarterly report from the Finance Department. So back to you, Director of Finance. Thank you.
I'll keep this one brief, and I think this is it for me for this meeting. So the reports provided for information for Q3 for finance. One area I will touch on very briefly is the grant opportunities. So the province recently announced several grant funding opportunities for local governments. Staff are reviewing existing operational and capital work plans, and we're looking to identify projects which align with the grant criteria and as well as the timing. We're also keeping in mind, though, our regional partners, as we don't want to create local competition for the same grant. The one area of funding which is not application-based is the Safe Restart funding for local governments, and that's listed on the last page 6 of my report. And so stream 1, there's no application required. It's $425 million is going to be provided to local governments to address COVID-related impacts on local government operations. The province has said that this funding will be provided in early 2021, and they're going to provide it on an adjusted per capita formula. So I can't confirm how much, but they have said that they will be provided early in 2021. And so the timing of this will enable council to include this funding in the 2021 budget discussion. So really great timing that way.
Good.
Just wanted to bring that one to your attention. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Welcome.
And I understand, as you say, staff are looking at other opportunities from the other grant streams.
Yes.
Council, I'm assuming everybody's had a chance. Now, one thing I saw that was seemingly missing, Director of Finance, is your accounting software, the money that we took out of the budget last year. Were you looking for that to get into your accounting for 2021?
Yes, I'm still reviewing the timing of that, but that would bring that. I'm still sort of, I'm sort of mulling over as we speak. It would either be a request for a new capital project for 2021, or if I needed to back up the timing earlier, I'd bring it to council earlier, either for pre-budget approval, or if I was able to reallocate some funds depending on where things end this year. So
just let you know, we haven't forgotten about it.
No, thank you so much. Thank you.
Councilor Lumley.
Yeah, I just had a question. I know I was just curious as to, the like latecomer fees, like where the town does the work on some infrastructure or property where there's a definite potential for collecting latecomer fees. Are those like recorded in a fund or a balance somewhere that, or in a ledger, I guess, that the town anticipates collecting, but can't really like put them on their balance sheet, or how are those like kind of collected and kept track of?
Yeah. Okay. So the really good example of that is the recent excess. It's a bylaw 1261. It's excess services for the Proust Road Lift Station project, and we have a bylaw that set the cap on how much we can collect. And Director of Infrastructure Services worked on that, but I can talk to the financial part of it. And we have been collecting so far this year. We're about $140,000. I set that aside, and the use of it is very specific to that project. So in that case, it's specific to funding the Proust Road Lift Station debt. So I keep that on a separate spreadsheet, and I track it, and we make sure that we don't go over. Once we reach our limit of how much we can collect, we stop collecting, but in the meantime, we're collecting from all the benefiting properties. And for that one, because we haven't drawn the debt yet on the Proust Road Lift Station, I'm going to use some of the money to reduce the amount of debt that we have to draw, because we have the opportunity to do that. And then later it can be used to fund the debt servicing for that one. So it's a new process for us, but it will take some pressure off the debt servicing. The other latecomers usually are passed on to other developers. So this is one of the ones that's unique to us that we actually get to keep because we did the work on it. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Further questions of Director of Finance? I think we're going to let you take a rest now, Director of Finance. Thank you very much for your 3 reports.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And we'll move to the administration report now, which is was an addition, if everybody has a copy of that, administration report, Q3 report.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will get going. We had an issue with the agenda, so our report was a little bit late. I think the piece we mailed it to you yesterday, there's a page that wasn't scanned, but Lindsay is working on a revised option. In the meantime, with your permission, I'll just update you on a couple of things in the report, keeping in mind our time. So Lindsay can speak to the COVID and the support for council and so on in the next couple of months and what we've been up to. Typically, we have August is off, but I'm not sure where August started and September ended, or the other way around. A lot of time was spent on preparing for UBCM. Was a bit of an odd duck between technology and short timelines, but I think overall a lot of business got done, and I, as you might recall, had decent meetings with applicable ministries and the issues that the town is trying to raise, in particular the protection of the aquifer recharge area. Staff since those meetings have been engaging with the Ministry of Forests, and the discussion is ongoing, just to providing the information as we had promised. And so we're hoping to hear about something more specific in terms of a meeting, particularly in the next little bit here. The strat plan, following the work done for the annual report, Elizabeth, obviously, as you know, did most of the work on the annual report, but on the actual strat plan as well. Even since then, we've been updating the worksheets for each one of the strategic goals, and we're prepared to meet with council and work through prioritization. You've been successful in a lot of the actions that you have identified, and you've got you barely even halfway through your term, and yet there's still lots to do, and it'll be good to prioritize that a little bit so we can be more strategic going forward in the next couple of years. And we've circulated a few dates. Still struggling with that, and the next day or two we'll come back to you in terms of an early November date. It looks like the late October is just tough to get everybody on site, but more on that soon. And that's mostly what I have at the moment. I'll see if Elizabeth has any questions. You saw the annual report is out as well. And so I'll leave it there and see if there's any questions as well, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillors, I'll turn to you. Is there any questions from the report? Now, the other pages, I received a copy on my email. I don't know if you received your copies yet. Have a look at them. Okay, so good. So, okay, any questions of that? While you're thinking, I'll just raise one flag for councillors, and that again is the councillor expenses. Please submit your internet to cell expenses if you're going to do that in a timely way, so that, and especially going over the end of the fiscal year, because if you don't get them before the end of January, I believe that they would then be charged against 2021. So keep that up. I just submitted my latest set the other day, and that's reflective, and for others who are listening in, is that council does get 1/3 the cost of their internet and cell phones, because we use those in our business purposes, especially now with COVID, and we're all working from home, all working on our home internets and things like that. And so it is a choice to submit it, but I think it's important that if you're going to do that, try to keep it within this year's budget. Councillor Ladwig?
It's just a minor thing. I was just going to say, it's a lot of work to gather up all your invoices for all of that for a couple $100. Like I almost wonder at some point if it would just be better to give councillors an allowance for.
Oh, it's a thought. Yeah.
Based on,
I did finally get onto my TELUS the other day and was able to download my three phone bills for the quarters, each month rather, and it was smooth. Makes up for some of the ones we lost in the past, I think. So yeah, I understand.
Yeah, to me just an allowance would be easier, and it should just be built in. But
yeah, so we can talk about that next year in budget. Yeah. Anything else? Any questions at all under the quarterly administration department report? Councillor Crowell.
I'm just assuming travel 350 was the UBCM registration fee for this year.
Somebody comment on that? Maybe Director of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just having a look at that. Sorry, I didn't. Right. If you don't mind, I'll just do a bit of digging, double check, and I'll get back to you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
The other thing that's not listed in here is that I would be interested in seeing in the quarterly report is the number of FOI requests received during the quarter. And so that it is a volume of work. And I think just looking at that number that we can recognize that our staff are spending time in that area. Corporate officer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is actually listed on one of the missing pages.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Unfortunately.
I haven't had a chance to read those missing pages yet. So
Yeah, I listed it in terms of how many were processed during the quarter because they can cross over. And so there were 5 requests processed and there are 2 still in progress.
okay. Oh, there I see it now. Yes. Yeah. Might be useful to have that as a header.
Yeah, I can do
as opposed to being caught up in those other things. Yeah. But it's an important volume, and it'd be good to estimate the amount of time spent on them, but that really doesn't matter. We're just processing them. So, and then ICBC stats. Was there anything we talk about ICBC? I know in terms of workload, but not in terms of stats processed.
Yeah, I can probably get those for you. I do receive them. I've just never included them on the quarterly before. It's actually very impressive through the last little while they've been struggling with COVID. Their transactions have actually gone up. The revenue has increased.
Yeah.
And that is with one staff member working in the office and helping people one at a time. And then we have our other staff helping everyone remotely for the ICBC transactions that can be done remotely. So in this last quarter, it saw driver services start testing again. So we are doing the driver's testing. They're doing the driver knowledge tests again. And driver services is fully functional once more. We are operating under limited hours, so 9 to 4, just like Town Hall. And I'm very happy to say we have a new tent outside. The original one was taken out by the first storm we had this season. So we've replaced it, and makes it a little bit more comfortable for the people who are waiting.
Recognize that. Thank you. Okay, any questions, Councillor? Well, we have both the CAO and Direct Corporate Officer here. Seeing none, I thank you both for your reports, and we'll move on to Infrastructure Department. Now, one thing, Councillors, I have asked in terms of the management team is to kind of give you highlights of their reports, assuming that you've read them, and you can go into any aspect of the report you want to ask a question on. But I would like them to tell us what they feel is important for us to hear at this time too. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. There's only 3 things that I want to bring to your attention. One, that the Gibsons Way improvements tender will be going out later this month. And that's the bike lane coming down Gibsons Way and then down North Fletcher. And I noticed on the council agenda that TRAC will be in attendance if the subject comes up. If they haven't heard from us already, we will be discussing the design with them. And that should be happening within the next week or 2. We've also got the pavement rehabilitation tender. So those are 2 big projects that will be completed in Q4. And if you read the report closely enough, you'd see that Q4 is going to be still fairly busy with a lot of smaller projects, and then a lot of finishing up of some of our larger ones. And then item 10.10. The Gibsons Aquifer. For starters, there's a typo in 2 locations. It actually should be under 10.10, the first bullet, it should say 1.53 million cubic meters. As for the second bullet as well, 1.46 million cubic meters. A little bit of a difference. And then the other thing I wanted to point out under section 10.10 is a new table that I'll put in there. I don't know if it'll be on every quarterly report. Perhaps it might be on the year end. We shall see. But I know I'd heard some scuttlebutt out there that we were apparently running out of water. And this table provides you with the facts of the matter. And it's a good thing to keep in mind when we're looking at the future moving forward, is to see how our projections are matching the actual water consumption. So no alarm bells there at all. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer them.
Just if I could, a typo, Dave, was 7.4, and it's just for the accuracy of the report looking forward, is that I think you've got carried over into 2020 instead of 2021.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. And you get the prize for the one hidden error that I put in.
On the one you put in there, eh? Okay.
Well done.
I'll go
Well
to
done.
questions, and Councillor Ladwig.
Thank you, Mr. Newman, for this report. It's always very thorough and I really appreciate it. With regard to that last discussion on the aquifer, I really appreciate seeing this. It does help kind of wrap our head around it, so thank you. A few points just so for my understanding. When it says here, the mapping study is due to be updated in 2021, will that give us a better understanding of water consumption today? Is that what, when you say mapping study?
We haven't seen, with our monitoring, we haven't seen any significant changes in the aquifer. There will be some additional drill logs that will be put into the model for the aquifer. They will be looking at all the monitoring information as well, and any of the information that can be brought up to current dates as far as projected consumption, etc. But I'm not anticipating any huge, revolutionary change or anything like that in the report itself. And so we're just working with Waterline right now on determining what needs to be updated in that study.
Okay, so so there's a few quick things. So does it tell us whether or not our aquifer bubble is adjusting based on drought conditions? Like, would we know that through the work that you guys are doing?
That's going to be one of the questions that we are going to be asking, and whether or not we have, whether there should be another recommendation in there if we're not gathering enough weather information, because I'm going to be very interested to see how the aquifer does respond and how quickly it does respond to any changes in the snowpack on the mountain, or does it just flatten out those curves if we don't end up with kind of a long-term change.
Perfect. Okay, so that's great. I'm glad to hear that. And then just finally, I just wanted to note that obviously there's a number of assumptions in the table you provided. I am glad to see that we are ways away from any concerns. What I had been raising in emails to council previously on this issue is what I would like to see ideally would be a line item added in the permits that stated something like anticipated development permits or something to that effect. Not that it needs to influence hugely our planning, but it's, for example, the way you've identified development permits, these are development permits that we've issued,
right?
Not ones that we are very much anticipating coming forward. So this would only include phase 1 of Gospel Rock, for example, not
right.
phase 2 and phase 3. It wouldn't include the George. And those kind of permits are the ones, like, I'd like a full picture, not again.
Actually, it does include the George.
Does it?
Yeah, because that was a development permit that's already been issued.
Oh, so my apologies. I didn't think it. Okay, my apologies.
And
okay.
I can provide more breakdown. I just thought I was trying to keep it fairly simple without getting too far into the weeds. But still, this was the first time, and I think projected development, sure, we can put that in there, and anything else that we can look at that would be beneficial without getting into too much onerous detail.
Exactly, that would be great. Just then we can see where we're headed and know how much room we have to play with.
You bet.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Deirdre.
Thank you. Director of Infrastructure, I think my curiosity is with modeling the long-term planning with the aquifer, because even though I'm sure there has been some climate change impacts in the past 10 years, right? But what we're gonna be seeing in the future, that's the alarming. So even though right now, if they look at, and the town is following up with the monitoring, so you may say, well, our our full amount, like Councillor Ledwig said, our bubble, it has not, we still have the same amount of water, but I would like to see some projection. And that's what I'm more, not the data that they're going to be measuring right now, but modeling, because I think the future is the problem. We might figure out that in 10 years that, the amount of rain is not the same, that snowpack actually, which is the main recharger, or other issues, deforestation or impact, fire, that could, or increasing in rate, in precipitation. And that could be the ones that really gonna impact absorption. So is there any modeling that's gonna be this time?
No, it's already been done. The capacity of the aquifer is based on making some, and I'm sorry, I was just grabbing the report to see if I could get hold of it quickly, but it talks about modeling a fairly significant reduction in snowpack and a rise in sea level and a reduction in precipitation. And that, with all of those factors in there, we end up with the capacity of the aquifer. So we're not looking at the capacity of the aquifer without taking that into consideration. So it's already a conservative model. What will be done anytime the aquifer mapping is updated is to look at the projections in comparison to reality, or updated information with perhaps where, updated models are looking at, more of a reduction in snowpack. So all of that will be updated. But right now we already are very conservative because we do have a significant reduction in snowpack modeled, reduction in rainfall modeled, and an increase in sea level rise.
And this modeling is what, every 5 years?
Typically on reports like this, you do every 5 to 10. And so this report was done or was finalized in 2013. And, we're looking at, I think,
Me too.
I think almost kind of doing it too frequently, you're just not going to get any benefit of any major change. And so a 10-year incremental would be appropriate, providing we don't see anything in our monitoring that indicates anything differently.
Okay.
And that is the importance of that annual monitoring as well, is to make sure that we're constantly keeping an eye on what it's doing with increased demands and so on. And I'm not sure if I mentioned to committee before, but the projected amount of water that we'll be using for zones 1, 2, and 3 is roughly the same that we used to use in 2012 with less population and only 2/3 of the town. So it's good news in that regards.
Councillor Ledwig.
Sorry, last comment, I promise. I also just wanted to point out, and this is what I mean about assumptions being built into calculations like this. I mean, that's just data for you. There's no other way of going about it. But I just wanted to highlight that if I understand correctly, we based our daily water consumption rate on the past 3 years. A conservative one, we upped it to 400,000 cubic liters versus 350. But I think these reports, it's important to highlight that 2 out of those 3 years were major drought years where we were put on massive water restrictions. And so naturally our consumption rates would have gone down. And, it's important for us to be thinking about this when we go up, plan forward, because that's not necessarily how we want to live. We don't
No, absolutely.
So
yep.
We're
we're without going into too much detail, we do look at all that information.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've actually got hopes to see it drop lower than 350, because one of the things that we're focusing on is addressing the leaks in our own system, and you can lose a significant amount of water through that. And we've got a goal already in our water strategy to reduce that.
That's great. All I'm saying is I don't want us to be basing our daily water consumption on a restrictive formula, because I don't want to like that, ideally. Okay.
Councillor Lumley?
Yeah, there's a couple things. Again, thanks for the report, Dave. Of course, very thorough. The first thing would be that we have to continue to be diligent, and even more so on encouraging all the residents of Gibsons to lower their consumption or find different ways of using water. I know a lot of people in town have gardens, and I know other communities do like brown lawn challenges and stuff like that. So, and what people could plant, I mean, we could influence every development as far as species of plant to use and so on and so forth. Another thing would be, it would actually be good, and I think in a way everyone's saying that, just your one point, Illyria, was when the restrictions during that drought period were put on Gibsons, it was done as a compassionate, because we had enough water in our aquifer to supply us with water, but because every one of our neighbors was put on these tight restrictions, Gibsons followed suit, more of a compassionate way than a necessity way from the aquifer. But one thing would be good on reports like in the future would be, and I think this would answer a lot of questions too, is that when you look at consumption, like if you look at consumption by year-to-year basis, you could almost look at what your expectations were for consumption like 5 and 10 years ago. Like, so if you're making these models and you're discussing, okay, we're going to be severely conservative, which it should be. Obviously, any forecast has to have a general level of conservatism in it. But I mean, maybe in the future, you could set a model where you could look back and you could say, hey, like 5 years ago, we thought we'd use this much water this year. And hey, look, we've used less. And then it would just give you a better sense of like what direction we're going in. Are like our estimations accurate? Are they way off? Or what are we doing? What's happening? But I think that would be informative too. And obviously fixing leaks and so on, I guess there's always something going to be happening and diligence in that. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to see something like that in the future.
Councillor Dean Drive?
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I think one of the areas that I haven't seen a conversation in regards to Gibsons is, I mean, there's a trend to secure food. So this year, I know because I went a lot to the nurseries and every single food was vanishing. People were doing gardeners. In the past, we had prohibition from the STRD, and you simply have to say, sorry, your garden is going to die. And I'm not talking about flowers, I'm talking about food. So that will be important to factor as well. And I have no idea how much, but I think this is a trend, and we should support that, because this is one of, it's one of the sustainable development goals. It's important to have food security. So I have no idea how much would be the increase. And following on the point of Councillor Lumley, we did, as a compassionate movement, especially we were hooked up on the SCRD on Zone 3. So the question is, if the SCRD next year goes through their challenging, are we doing the same? Are we going to kill all the food gardeners that people in Gibsons are trying to have? So
Council made a motion to never do that again. I think you'll find that the last term council said we'll never do this again. Like if we have water, we'll live like we're living. So,
Councillor Crowell, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I just wanted to, a great report, Director Newman, but just pointing out the information provided that came out with the water bills this month. On the water services and the progress we're making, and the water use down between 2009 to 2019, that we're down 56% in water consumption. I think education is a great tool, and also the fact that people tend to be a little more conservative when they see what they're paying for and how much they're using, and do you really need to use as much as you're using? And I think, with respect to Councillor Dandretti's comment about people with gardens, rainwater collection, you look at the average lot size of Gibsons, people don't have huge garden plots, although I have noticed a few new homes go in where their front yard is actually a fenced vegetable garden. But still, they're raised beds, they're designed in such a way, they're well mulched to retain moisture, and just utilizing, captured rainwater and being effective with, how you use your water. So, but I do really appreciate the time and effort that went into the reports and the information that came out with the water bills this quarter.
Director of Infrastructure, one last comment. I mean, I think this is something you've built on in the future, this report in your quarterly reports. And at some point, you might want to be interested in learning about the major users in terms of commercial. What are the commercial users? What does a brewery use? What does a marijuana processor use? That type of thing as we go forward. It might be interesting because it's always something to counter a conversation or a negative suggestion. So,
yeah. And there's that is certainly an area that we can look at for water conservation. Interestingly enough, the breweries aren't in the top 5 or 10.
Yeah. No,
sure. We've looked at that. I think it was last year. We had a look more, maybe partly out of curiosity. I don't know. But there was, as an example, a local establishment that was still using the old coolers that would just constantly run water through them and then out to the sewer. And it was, with the bills that they were getting, it was well worth their while to change those over to other types of coolers. And we're looking at those high water users as being, possibly going by and talking to them about conservation efforts. And as I say, sometimes there's a really good business case to be made for conserving that water. And so we've got, since 2015, we've been below 400 liters per capita. And that is, keep in mind, that's all in, that's business use, everything divided amongst the individual residents. Actual residential use is less than 200 liters per capita per day.
Good.
And so the balance is business use, fire use, maintenance use, and leakage.
That's good to know, yeah.
So we've got room to still move, and we're still moving.
Good. I'd like to just comment on 10.9, which is Sharman Creek. A couple of weeks ago, Councilor D'Andrade and I walked that creek again with the stream keepers. They've also made a request that we, let them know if we see any salmon going up during this period now. So I went down there today at high tide. There were no salmon, but I did ask CAO if we could post some signage at the Gibsons Creek, the Sharman Creek, and the Gooseberry Creek. Observe and report, and just invite people to say, if you see a fish going up, please call, just so we know that it's a measure of health of the rivers and the creeks, and that we may not see it this year. We may see one, we may see two, we may have several reports, but it'll be just, none of us can physically be there all the time with these high tides, but other people are walking there all the time. So it'll be interesting to get those reports. And I know that there are very small streams that will support a fishery. We used to see that in different areas. It's amazing that the number of fish will go up a small creek and find a place to spawn. So it'd be good to see that monitored. And I think there's some work needs to be done on Sharman, but probably work needs to be done on some other creeks as well, including helping the fish across the road again this year. I don't know if that's going to be necessary at Gibson Creek. Councilor D'Andrade's raised that already as a question.
That one was, I'm not sure how that one started because that's actually outside of town jurisdiction. I'm not sure.
It was probably just compassion.
Possibly.
Yeah. So. Okay, thank you for your report, and we move on to other aspects of this document. And unless council has any other questions, there's I guess the one other thing I'd highlighted in here. For some reason, I highlighted garbage collection. Oh yeah, the garbage cans. Still in your report, and another typo. There you go. Typo under 11.3. Again, just for the accuracy of the future, it's Arbutus Beach, not Reach. I think it's just
Arbutus.
Sorry, what does say Arbutus? One of the water samples from Arbutus Reach showed up.
So sorry, Mayor, that's now you've lost the prize for spotting a
error. No. 11.3. Where's Arbutus Reach?
It's up off the bluff.
This is the coliform count?
Oh, it was the that was where the new water main was installed. I remember they had some issues with water main breakage.
And I read that as Arbutus Beach. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we replaced the water main there. It was not a E. coli, and we did some additional flushing of the main, and that's cleared up.
Yeah. And the other is garbage cans and garbage collection. I know there's been an issue in Lower Gibsons. I get my own calls about that. And the part of the challenge, of course, is we have a lot of places there providing takeout. And those takeout containers walk out the door and owners don't take responsibility for them anymore. They then call to us and say, where's the garbage can so that my customers can put my garbage in your bins? And I think we have to have a conversation about that at some point. I know up in my neighborhood, when I do the annual cleanup on Park Road, it's all of the takeouts that come from the A&W, Tim Hortons, and Starbucks that I'm picking up out of the ditches. And it'd be nice if they would provide some kind of a cleanup on that. And so interesting to see that we're providing this high level of garbage service to support the businesses that part of the business license, I suppose, but not every business is sending garbage out the door. So, Councillor Lumley.
I don't want to get too far off onto another tangent, but I guess we've discussed this in meetings before. I mean, we only use like everything that we as takeout is compostable, and we take ours back. But
yeah,
again, it's almost like that long-winded discussion about plastic bags. It's like you'd wish people would just take the initiative. I mean, the costs are not prohibitive for every single restaurant, including Tim Hortons, Wendy's, to use compostable. We've come so far in that it just doesn't. The costs don't prohibit, and we don't charge any more to use takeout. And we use wooden, those kind of spork things. They're just made of wood. You don't need plastic. It'd be nice if. I know we don't have the leverage as a municipality to force businesses to choose that direction, but you sure would wish that they would. So it's like I said, it doesn't cost that much more money.
Just seen an explosion of garbage cans in the town, and that is, as you read the document, it says this will translate in 2021 into additional manpower requirements.
Yeah, well, they're the ones that we use break down like within 30 to 45 days. They're out there, and you can, like I said, you don't have to use styrofoam, and you don't have to give everybody a plastic bag. People have to start becoming more. If you're going to do takeout, bring your own bag. I don't know. I mean, people do it at grocery stores. Like, why can't people, make the effort? Maybe the businesses can meet in the middle somewhere, but I mean, it's got to be on everybody, right? So,
Councillor Kroll, you're muted.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I agree with what sort of Councillor Lumley was saying. One of the problems, though, compostable or not, the garbage ends up in the town's garbage cans, and we are, correct me if I'm wrong, our garbage from our garbage cans doesn't get sorted into what's compostable and what isn't. There's a little container on the side for recyclables, bottles and cans, but if you pitch a plastic cup or a compostable paper cup or a compostable bag into the garbage container, it ends up in the landfill. And that's the unfortunate thing, that the businesses that are generating it aren't, I've often thought there should be incentive programs for people to bring back 10 paper cups or plastic cups to a business, and they give them a free coffee in exchange for them. But it's frustrating. The public market went through a huge issue with their night markets, and Madison went to huge lengths to organize compostable and recyclable stuff, and the local recycle depots won't even take what is stamped as compostable or recyclable. So it's a huge issue, and it needs to be start at the top and filter down. The federal government needs to institute regulations, because we pay at the bottom of the food chain the cost of landfill and garbage pickup.
Okay, Councillor Ledwick.
Yeah, just quickly on this. Are the new garbage cans that we're buying and putting around town, the black ones with the little basket on the side for recyclable products?
That's correct, yes.
Why did we choose that model, and why, like, as a community that is supposed to be encouraging recycling and whatnot? I just noticed this summer when I was down at Armour's, there's lots of bottles, like that little basket overflowing, because it seems like finally people are trying to do their part, but we're not giving them an avenue to do that as far as recycling. Anyways, over to
Mr. Tardif.
Yes, so the garbage bin that we selected was selected for the downtown area, and that the trailheads was mostly selected based on it being animal resistant, bear resistant. And the other thing with trying to, we've talked about or thought about and discussed putting like a garbage bin and then a recycling bin. But as soon as you got one piece of food or something in the recycling bin, then you have to do some triage. So that means our workers would have to now go and do the triage, and anything can be in that bin, right? Including needles and others. So and there's a lot of garbage that goes into that. And I think that's what other municipalities are experiencing. So right now, like we have 49 garbage bin, and 26 of them, I believe, are animal resistant now. For us, since COVID started, we've seen a huge increase in the amount of garbage to be collected, to the point where we have to have somebody 7 days a week, including, like, we think normally now the summer should be over, tourists should be gone, but they're still around, they're still producing garbage. And you're right, businesses are providing people with takeaway, and all that stuff ends up in the garbage. So at this point in time, what we are, I know I'm not saying we have a final solution, but we need to pick up the garbage more regularly, more often. That means a weekend, which we didn't have to do in the past.
And not to discount dog bags as well.
Right. Yeah.
Councilor Diendrad.
Thanks, Mayor Beamish. I propose that we have in our planning like some good garbage conversations, because this is a matter of education. I for example, when I go out, I carry my garbage. I don't need any garbage can in town. And I'm really aware, if I go and buy, I avoid buying anything. I carry my own water. So one way is through school. We have a youth counselor, and whether elementary, we do a partnership with the SD 46. I think this is a bigger conversation we have to have with the other municipalities too, because this is a serious issue. And the environmental print that all these companies, especially the ones that sell cheap food, that's a big problem because it's not cheap. But we pay a huge price, environmentally speaking, and in terms of municipal costs. So I'm just proposing that we have as part of our next some sort of planning, because this is huge, and I think we have some solutions at the municipal level, and we have other more which ties with education, but involves business owners. But I think it is a direction, because we are talking about, all the environmental issues that we are facing our planet. And I think people need to understand that the normal is not normal anymore, and we need to change. And sometimes the solution is not to provide garbage cans at all. And people have to carry their garbage. Why not?
Yeah.
So just the final word on the garbage, from my end anyway, is we're finding that some businesses want garbage cans so that they don't end up with all the garbage piling over in front of their place, and then other businesses don't want to see a garbage bin in front of their business. It's a little bit contradictory, so the one thing that we need is what I'm trying to explain is that at the moment, with the manpower that we have, we need more of that, more manpower. I'm just preparing you that's what's coming. Can I just say a few words about the other part of Public Works that took place in the last quarter?
Go ahead. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So if you look at section 11.2, there's a table there. And it shows the water distribution, how much we bought from the SCRD in the last quarter. And so as you can see, if you compare Q3 2019 to Q3 this year, 2020, in July, we had like 13,900 cubic meters of water. That is usual. Like we changed over, we started the Parkland booster station on the 29th or the 30th of July that day. So basically August and September, these numbers are not quite right. It's not zero exactly, because we did have some instances where there's a check valve between the SCRD and the town of Gibsons now at zone 3. So whenever we open a fire hydrant, the pressure drops and it opens that check valve. But the numbers, according to the SCRD, are minimum. So that's a huge difference, and it should show into our cost, right? Cost of buying water. And so that's one item. And the startup of that station, by the way, was eventless. Like it was bumpless. It was very smooth. And we attribute that to the good work that everybody did on that, including the contractors, of course, but also our own operating team, which this station now, because we're chlorinating all the time, requires more operating time. So the people that are stationed at the wastewater treatment plant, the 3 operators, they spend more time up there now, making sure that we're not overdosing or underdosing chlorine. Also, we did a huge job at the wastewater treatment plant. We did a similar job to what we did last summer. We emptied one of our 2 main tanks and changed all the diffuser heads. But you probably didn't hear any complaints of odor. That's because we did it differently at a different time of the year, and it went very well. And finally, we're complete now with all of our summer work, like paving, line painting, and pavement patching, and crack sealing. And yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you. CIO, you want to say a word?
Just I realize we have time. We don't have a lot of time, I should say. We're just checking on that very quickly. We've got Leslie Ann to go still. But I want to point out on this last work that was done at the treatment plant, and this ties back to the discussion around our capacity to continue to serve people with the aquifer, which, as we've mentioned, we don't have any concerns there. But we're even more confident in the wastewater treatment plant, and because since it was built in 05, it's been going for the last couple of years at a major upgrade, and it's functioning better than even when it was originally built. We should also know that there's a lot of capacity left in that plant to operate for our future growth. And moreover, when this plant was basically was shut down to about 50% capacity over the time they were emptying that one tank. And during that period, we had a major rain event, one of the larger ones, and it continued to perform really well. And what that tells us is that from a climate change perspective, that additional tank that was built, the surge tank from 2 years ago, it's doing its job, and it's letting us continue to operate and treat at a high standard with just half of the plant working in a heavy event, rain event. So it's important to point out that those things are, and of course, with Prowse Road almost completed as well, will give us even more comfort as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Tardif? No, thank you. Thank you, Daniel, for your report, and appreciate this thoroughness again. And so, I mean, it's always good to read through these things, the amount of work that is being done that we don't see on a day-to-day basis, but we get to understand on a quarterly basis is significant. So thank you. We will go to the Director of Planning. I do not want to cut her short, so I'm going to ask Council for a extension till 5:15. I brought a power bar, so I'm okay. I've got my supper. So that 5:15, if we could. Moved by Councilor Diandrat, second by Councilor Kroll. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. And Director of Planning, for some reason, you're always last. I think you need to negotiate a different place in the role so we can hear from you earlier in the presentations. So I'll let you take the floor. And
thank you, Mayor.
You got 20 minutes.
I'll make it quick. In the planning department, building and bylaw enforcement staff are still working from the office. The planners and the admin support are alternating days in the office and mostly working from home. In Q3, we did a lot of policy work, which was really nice to move forward on. Policy often gets buried under development applications, so it was nice to move along with that. In terms of the affordable housing projects, they're all coming along nicely. A highlight from this quarter and into the fourth quarter was the completion of the housing needs assessment. All 3 regional partners received that report. So now I'm just going to be working on finalizing the financial summary and reporting back to UBCM on the grant. A few meetings are scheduled in November to begin the policy work on that. In terms of the community amenity contribution policy, in Q3, we received a draft recommendation with contribution approaches. And right now the consultants are working on pro forma financial calculations of case study sites under multiple land use types and tenures to understand the extent of a CAC. So they're looking at basically representative properties, say that's under a detached residential zoning that's designated in the OCP for medium density, looking at some different build out potentials under the OCP floor space ratios, and then different tenures. So whether it's rental versus ownership, and then based on that, they're gonna come up with some rates that we can use in our CAC policy. So that's exciting. In terms of the building bylaw and energy step code, that was another thing that was completed in Q3, which feels really good to cross the finish line on that. New this quarter is supporting the regional district on the regional growth baseline research project. So that is essentially the baseline project that would feed into a regional growth strategy. So the Sunshine Coast Regional District will lead that, and the town will support them in scoping out what that project looks like and supporting them through the plan. So those are the policy highlights. In terms of development applications, we are steady. We're on par with last year's numbers. COVID hasn't seemed to impact development applications at all. And I just wanted to point out that Q3 was over the summer. The planners were working from home with children at home and plowing through development applications and policy work, and it didn't slow them down. So I just want to give kudos to them for the hard work and the change in work conditions. They did really well. Building permits are also steadily coming in. We're on par with Q3 last year. So also appears unaffected by COVID at this point. Bylaw enforcement has been hit the hardest with COVID. A lot of people are at home and a lot of people are complaining. So this quarter complaints tripled compared to last year's Q3. So we've been recruiting a casual bylaw enforcement officer to support our bylaw department, and we put out an offer letter today. So we're hopeful that we'll have somebody new join our team. And lately, this quarter, or well, actually in the last week, we've had 5 complaints about bears accessing dumpsters. So it's definitely on our mind as well about how to deal with that. So that's a quick highlight, and I can answer any questions that council or this committee may have.
Thank you, Director of Planning, for your report. And Councillor Lumley.
I don't have a question. I was just going to thank Sue because I had to use the bylaw officer. She responded because I got bit by a dog on the sea path and punctured my leg, both of the fangs of the dog. So Sue was very on top of it, found the dog, very compassionate, followed up with me on a couple of occasions. So I just wanted to thank her. And it's like I'm living proof that, you know, they're working hard. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass that on.
Yeah, the table on page 100 in our report on bylaw enforcement is really interesting. That reading that, it looks like we're 451 complaints this year so far. Is that what I'm reading in 2020 year to date?
Yeah, so we had so this quarter we had 204 complaints, and last quarter we had 76. So
that's amazing. Yeah, it really is. Are any of them around social distancing or things of that nature? Or are they?
They started. Some of them were, but not specifically.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Does anybody have any additional questions, Councilor Dean Drive?
Yes, it would be nice. Well, thanks for the report. I actually thanks for all the reports because I see over time the reports are more complete. So you have obviously less questions because now there's a lot of explanation. So I really appreciate that. And I'm sure the public as well. One thing that because it came across, I had some residents coming to me and complain about dogs. And that was interesting that Councillor Lumley has been bitten. And this is something happening. I saw also on the news. So I think this is an important issue that will come forward with more complaints. And even I think there will be letters to council. So if it would be possible to have the numbers of these complaints broken down, because I think it's important. If I'm concerned with off-leash dogs. And, you're walking in, I think we have more than anything, the right to walk in peace and not being threatened. And there's too many people that are being threatened by dogs. And this is another thing that we have to take very seriously. And I think without numbers, it's hard to manage. So if it's possible, and
Yeah, we'll look at all the different complaints and see if we can categorize them.
Mhm.
Might be a good argument and supportive for an off-leash dog park.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything further for Director of Planning? There's a lot on your table, a lot on your plate. Some projects I'm interested in myself, supportive housing being one. I think that we need to look at the supports around supportive housing, but we'll talk about that. And then other projects that are going on. And I can congratulate you on all that work. I mean, sometimes we get anxious and we want things to move faster and we want information quicker. But these quarterly reports are extremely helpful to remind us that regardless of what we want and what we're doing, what we're thinking about, things are happening and things are getting done. And that's very important. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So seeing nothing else, I thank you for your time on that. And we'll go back to the corporate officer and we'll look for inquiries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I'll ask anybody in the audience if they have a question to ask of the committee. If you could please use the raise the hand feature, and I'll turn on your audio and video. I'm not seeing any, Mr. Mayor.
Before we close, I'd like to see if council would like to make a recommendation that well, maybe I won't.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I was just answering. You can if you want, of course.
Okay, that the grants of assistance come forward to tonight's meeting so that those in a limited way can get on with them and save that 2-week period. Councillor Kroll, you move that? Would somebody move that then? Yeah, Councillor Diendrad moved and Councillor Kroll seconded. So that is the 2 grants of assistance we approved tonight would come forward to tonight's meeting for approval by council. And then we would be able to notify the people on that. So they all in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, we will see everybody back here. We didn't need to go to the 5:15 unless anybody wants to keep on talking. Otherwise, we'll see you at 6 o'clock for our next meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. And thanks staff for a great job. Yeah.
Thanks, Council.
Thank you.